real quick, Vic, I don't want to take up much time on this. I watched the fight again. Uh, Great fight, man. Great fight. Both guys showed heart, determination, and both guys, they went out there and they really put out a show on Showtime. Now I want to say this fight is another one of them fights that's like very subjective in terms of scoring. In some rounds it is. It's not the easiest fight to score. But it's subjective in some rounds. It's very subjective. But for instance, the 12th round is an example. It's a very, very hard round to score. You got to look very intently and keenly to see who's actually landing. I want to say that the first 6 rounds I gave to Guerrero. There's no knockdowns in this whole fight, so, those are 10-9 rounds. I gave to Guerrero. I felt Aydin landed some shots that were clean and solid within those first 6 rounds, but overall Guerrero outworked them. And I felt that, if anything, the first 6 rounds are the easiest to score. Maybe 1 out of those 6 you could have gave to Aydin. Like I said, this is a subjective fight overall to score as well, especially in some rounds particular. But hey, me personally, I gave the first 6 rounds to Guerrero. I felt he outworked him, but I did felt Aydin may have landed even some hard shots in the round, but he just didn't do enough. He was more, he just wasn't throwing offensively. Now, I want to say in the 7th round, that's when Aydin came alive. 7th round, man, with the hooks to the head. He had Guerrero, stunned a little bit. The 8th round, I gave to Aydin. 10-9 for him again. The 9th round was damn close. I could see it going to either fighter, to be honest. I gave the 9th round a draw, 10-10. The 10th round, I gave to Aydin. The 11th round, I gave to Aydin. The 12th round, I gave to Aydin. Now, if you watch my first post-fight vid, I said I felt that Aydin, after the first look, swept the championship rounds. And after watching it again, I still feel the same way. Aydin came on strong in the championship rounds, and Guerrero seemed to be hurt to the body a lot and was getting more and more tired and was just fading. Guerrero was straight fighting off heart in those last 3 rounds. And he fought good, don't get me wrong. He even landed a beautiful combination in the end of 1 round, but I just felt that Aydin had, correct me if I'm wrong, but if even I'm not mistaken, even Showtime, who is a much better network, I feel, than HBO, gave the correct stats, and they said, I think it was back-to-back rounds, they said Aydin actually outlanded Guerrero for once in the fight. I think it was like 20 punches to 15 or something like that. So then after scoring a round, I was like, damn, I know I'm watching, because I'm watching the fight. I'm not being biased. I'm not knocking Guerrero. My heart goes out to him. Like I said, it's an extraordinary story. Thank God his wife made it through the cancer. But when it comes down to the simple element, this is just boxing. You know what I'm saying? It's a great story. Obviously, a lot of people were pulling for him. I like to see the underdog win. I don't mind Guerrero winning either, man. This is one of them fights where really it's like I'm neutral with it, even though my heart's always with the underdog, to be honest with you. But I'm watching the fight neutral as I watch any fight. There's no bias here. It's just I'm keeping it 100, and when I see something, I just want to call it like how I see it. The second time watching this fight, I had my final score totals were 115, 114 for the Ghost. And that's because, remember, that 9th round that was very, very close in my eyes, I made it a draw. Could have went to either fighter. If you give it to Aydin, this fight's a draw. This fight's a draw. If you give, like I said, the first 6 rounds, I felt Guerrero swept. If you give 1 out of those first 6 rounds to Aydin, if somebody scores it like that, then you could easily have Aydin winning this fight by a point. It's a close fight. Hometown favors Guerrero. Extraordinary story. I mean, you can't tell me the judges weren't touched by this story and him being in the hometown. They weren't looking to give it to him from the start. Let's be honest. But I have no problems with the judges' score. When it's a close fight like this, even if it goes to Guerrero, he earned it, man. That dude fought his heart out. Even in the rounds, I gotta be honest, the championship rounds that I gave to Aydin, that dude was fighting his heart out, man. If anything, he was hurt. He was tired. Aydin's attacking his body viciously, throwing some hard, serious shots to do damage, and he still stood on his feet. He didn't go down one time, and he threw some beautiful combinations. But I think Aydin's defense is being overlooked here. A lot of the shots Aydin blocked. Even in the first 6 rounds, Aydin blocked a lot of those shots, man. He doesn't have no upper body movement, but he puts that guard up, and his guard were protecting them shots. I think Guerrero was throwing good combinations, but at the same time, he could have placed his shots a lot better if he had decided to box from the very beginning. But because he got into this even though at times he was boxing, but overall he got into this like brawl street fight, in which Aydin had a lot to do with before the fight, the weigh-in. He carried it into the fight. He dragged Guerrero into fighting his style of fighting, which would work to his favor. And I think that's how he was able to grab all these rounds, because I feel if Guerrero had boxed from the beginning to the best of his ability, like he can, he could have stretched the fight out way more in terms of points. But he didn't, so, it went to Aydin's favor. Aydin's a tough fighter, man. Very limited in what he can do, but very tough fighter. He's predictable. Some of his punches are telegraphed, but he goes out there and he fights, man. This guy fights, and if you're on the inside with him, he's going to go to your body, and he's going to slow you down. And this guy doesn't get tired. That's one thing I noticed about him. Only the second fight I've seen from him, but he doesn't get tired in a 12th round fight. So, he's relentless. That straight overhand right, if he lands it, I'm sure he's going to do some damage with it. He's got some power. Tough fighter. Guerrero fought his heart out, and he earned this victory. He deserves this victory. I take nothing from him. I had no problem with the judges' score totals. One judge had it 117 to 111. Other two judges had it 116 to 112. I'm more in favor of the 116 to 112, where they got Guerrero winning by 4 points, as opposed to winning by 6 points. But like I said, this fight's subjective. That's why I don't have a problem with the score totals. I can see them giving the 8th round to Guerrero. I can see somebody giving the 9th round to Guerrero. I can see somebody giving perhaps the 12th round's very hard to score. I could see them giving it to Guerrero. So I can see how you get that 4-point difference for the judges that had it 116 to 112. 117 to 111, not so much. I'm not complaining, but not so much. I think the 116 to 112 that the two judges had would be more accurate, more fair. It's subjective depending on what they were looking for. I think Aydin had for the most part had good defense with his guard. Like I said, this guy's more stationary. He doesn't have upper body movement, but he puts his guard up to his head. You can punch through somebody's guard, especially if you're a power puncher. But I think Guerrero was going so thrown off of adrenaline so much that he didn't place his punches a lot, and a lot of those shots Aydin blocked. But in the first 6 rounds, Aydin wasn't throwing nothing back. Like, remember, your offense corresponds with your defense. It goes hand in hand. You can only get so much credit for defense if you're doing something on offense. If you're not doing nothing, next to barely nothing on offense, you can't get no credit for your defense. So Aydin blocked a lot of those shots, but the shots that did land from Guerrero, you got to give Guerrero takes the round because he's outworking him. Even though his shots aren't all going in, a lot of them I felt was getting blocked by Aydin with that guard. But the ones that went in, I give Guerrero a lot of credit for, because Aydin wasn't throwing barely nothing in the first 6 rounds. It's the 7th round is when Select Aydin came alive and he started going to work. So, once again, my score is 115 to 114. I think it was a very close fight. Even when I first saw it, I was thinking split decision more. That's how I was thinking, split decision. But they gave him a, unanimous decision. Nothing wrong with that. Guerrero deserves it. He earned it. To go up 2 weight classes is extraordinary. I don't care who you're fighting. I don't care if this is the weakest champion of the division, or, no guy was champion. It was for a vacant title. But I'm saying, even if Select had came in being a champion at 23-0, even if that was the weakest champion of the division, to go up 2 weight divisions and even go up after the weakest champion in that division is incredible. It just shows what kind of fighter you are. You got to be very talented to do that, especially after being off a year and a half. With that being said, no hating on Guerrero. I don't feel he deserves to even be in this position to win this WBC championship title. You cannot be off a year and a half and there's other guys putting in work in the division and they haven't gotten a title shot yet. You've been off a year and a half, you jump up 2 weight classes and you get a title shot. I don't think that's fair. At least he should have fought one fighter at 147 and then, a top contender guy and then get a title shot. But that's just how the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. That's boxing, I like Guerrero, so I'm not gonna, keep going at it. But that's just being putting right with right. That's just being fair. I mean, if you feel different, then holler at me on this video in the comments. But that's just what I feel, putting right with right. But hey, they stuck him in this position. He's very good at lightweight. You know, guy that's got a winning record. You know, they wanted. You know, his story touches you. I'm sure they you know, people's heart go out to this man. So I'm sure, you know, they put him in a great position. They gave him a match right away at 2 weight classes higher that he's never fought at. After being off a year and a half, he picks up a vacant title. He earned the victory. I don't have no problem with it, but I was just going back. You know, I watched the fight a second time, and I just feel it was a very close fight, and I just like to hear other people's opinions on the fight, if they thought it was close or not. It's a very subjective fight to score. Another one of those. Slideways 100, man. I'm out.